The main focus of this channel has been a lot of replica arcade machines from Arcade 1-Up and things like my multi-cade iconic arcade machine, as well as the bar top style arcade units and some wall mounted ones. Basically anything that kind of resembles somewhat of the full size experience without having the full size requirements of all the space that's needed to fit in my tiny little basement here. Now, one of the style of arcade devices or toys, you can call them, that I haven't really went too deep into come down to the micro arcade machines that you can buy. I've been gifted through the years like a Frogger one. I also have like a Mortal Kombat one. But recently I was browsing through Walmart and just grabbing something, and I looked and I saw that there was a My Arcade Data East micro arcade machine there for basically on clearance for 25 bucks. And I decided, I haven't really gone too deep into these devices, and I'm aware that some guys on this sort of home arcade space are heavily vested in these devices. I myself have always looked at them as a gimmick. I kind of like them as like a little set piece that sits in my arcade, but I would never tell you that I actively play them or find them enjoyable to play on. But this piqued my interest because I am a Data East fan. Bad Dudes is kind of a nostalgic game for me, something that I played when I was younger. So I figured, you know what, this has it packed into the device, so I'm going to take the $25 gamble and basically let you guys know what I think. So let's take a look. The first thing that caught my eye beyond the fact that this was only $25 was the packaging looked pretty appealing. You have a pretty decent collection of Data East games like Caveman Ninja or Burger Time, or my personal favorite, Bad Dudes. And in addition to that, it also advertises an additional 300 games built into the device. So it looks like this device is trying to kind of cater itself to people who want a retro arcade experience, but on a small form factor and something they can easily store or put on a shelf or pull out when needed. So pulling it out of the packaging, nothing really ultra revolutionary. Like I've owned the My Arcade Game Station Pro, which came with some cool little extras like a certificate of authenticity. There wasn't really anything like that in the packaging, just instructions as well as a little advertisement for other My Arcade devices. Now, looking at the device itself, you get a detachable joystick that's already screwed in on the thumb pad or the D-pad. You get two buttons. You get a monotone speaker on the back as well as volume up and down controls. You also have a little headphone jack, and you have a USB-C input, so you can run this from a wall. You can also run this off of batteries. Really, the choice is yours. It's not rechargeable though, but something just to consider. You do have two different ways to kind of set it up. Now, getting into this device itself and kind of just starting it up, one of the first things that I noticed is the screen's not great. The screen, especially for being so small, I'm aware this is a pretty cheap device, but as I understand, looking at the tag and looking online, this device retails for around $50. So for something that's kind of so small out of the gate, the screen's kind of hard to see because you get a lot of ghosting if you look at it left or right. And further to that, again, I'm aware this is kind of an inexpensive device, and I'm aware My Arcade kind of has a weird footing in the market where they make low-end devices and mid-range devices, some even higher-end devices. So I am aware that this probably falls more in the low-end spectrum. So this doesn't really feel that great in terms of the actual device itself. Like, it's kind of plasticky and light, and it's not really anything special. Now, I do like the artwork on the side. It does look high quality and it does look nice. And one little nice touch that I also liked is when you plug this in, the coin door lights up. So you get a light up coin door, and if you push that coin door, even though it is just a sticker, it's the on and off button for the device. It was a nice little touch that I thought for this type of small device was actually kind of cool. Now, moving further into the device is the game selection. So I do want to highlight, yes, you get the advertised games like the Caveman Ninja and Bad Dudes. However, the other 300 games, a lot of them are mostly unknown games. I tested a handful of them. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I did a deep dive on the other 300 games. They weren't anything really appealing to me, but they're kind of just throwaways in my opinion. They're nothing that I would say are really special. Now, looking at the actual main games, however, I tried immediately Bad Dudes. Now, playing it out of the gate, it does feel like the original Bad Dudes, and it does control relatively well. I myself don't really like the screw-in joystick. I ended up pretty quickly after starting this, unscrewing that top and using the D-pad, which I found was a bit more comfortable. Now, this device shares the same dislike that I had for other devices like this, like the little Mortal Kombat one I've tested. I don't believe that was a My Arcade, it was some other brand. Or the Frogger one, and that's that the buttons are like, they just don't feel good, they don't feel comfortable, and that's kind of intensified by the fact that because this is so small, you're not going to play this like a general arcade where you have your hands resting and in the front of it. I found it most comfortable to play almost like holding it like an old Nintendo Entertainment System controller and holding it from the sides, and that seemed to work the best. But the buttons themselves just don't really feel that comfortable. They feel almost too tight and too clicky, and not in a good way. And they don't, I'm not going to say they feel the most responsive. Now, that to me is kind of the main detracting point, and I am aware that these devices kind of hold like a gimmick status in a lot of people's arcades, but I think where I made the mistake, and I'm just going to be transparent on this, I don't really hold much nostalgia for this device. Like, I like Data East games, but I think I would have been better off if I went for like a Bad Dudes branded looking device, because I think that would look cooler on my shelf. This just kind of looks more like almost like a Temu style, like multi-arcade device. Here you go. Like, the artwork looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I don't really have much nostalgia for the form factor of this device. It doesn't look like a Micro Pac-Man or something, or a Micro Mortal Kombat or something. It just kind of looks like a generic device. And I did test other games like Caveman, Ninja, and again, it played acceptable, but I could not see myself for a long stretch really playing much on this device. It's just not great, and again, I struggle with these devices because I actually think those collector cades, the arcade one-up, look kind of cool, but they don't look $100 cool, right? I could see myself buying them for 25 bucks because they have like a nice little aesthetic. They look somewhat like the original arcade machines. They look like cool little, like, little like art pieces that you put on a shelf. This doesn't really hold that. It doesn't really play well enough to justify what it is. So what I mean is, it doesn't just feel fun. It doesn't feel fun to play on this, so I can't see myself sitting there and gaming on this like I do frequently on my R36S, which is a multi-retro gaming device. This is trying to look like a little micro arcade, but it's not necessarily branded based off of any one micro or any one full-size arcade machine, so it kind of loses its appeal there. Now, I will go into things like the sound. It's not... I struggle with some of these retro devices because sound in general, these games used very low fidelity sound, so it plays the sound. It doesn't have any like dithering or anything at higher volumes. It doesn't sound great, I guess, but it doesn't sound bad. It's acceptable. Now, I could see myself thinking this might be cool to have on a shelf turned on with USB-C and having, a gameplay on its track screen. I think that's probably what's going to be the fate of this device in my home arcade. But as an actual usable device, I don't find much appeal in this. I don't see a reason why I'm going to pull this out beyond the $25 investment that I put into this. There's even a potential at some point I may just give this to my son and my daughter to mess around with, because, again, it's not bad. If this is the sort of thing you're into, you might find this appealing at the $25 price tag. But I myself, even if I was seriously collecting these devices, I could not see myself spending more than that $25 that I spent. And even in this case, that might be, maybe I spent a little bit more than I should have. So to buy this thing retail for $50, I don't think that this device really has enough to offer to justify that price tag. And that's probably why this was on clearance, because there's probably a lot of other people out there who feel the same way that I do.